On the last episode of The Reset, we looked at what qualified Karmelo Anthony for a self-defense claim under Texas law in the stabbing death of Austin Metcalf. On June 24, 2025, Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis announced that Anthony had indeed been indicted for first-degree murder. But is this the appropriate charge for this case? Now, some folks who've been following the case believe that a charge of manslaughter would have been more suffice. But the question of, did Karmelo Anthony knowingly and intentionally stab to death Austin Metcalf at a track meet on April 2nd, 2025, will ultimately be decided by a jury. So today, we're going to take a look at the Texas penal codes for what qualifies as murder and whether or not prosecution will be able to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, when we look into the Texas penal codes, we come across Title V, Offenses Against the Person. In Chapter 19, Criminal Homicide, Section 1901, Types of Criminal Homicide, it says, a person commits criminal homicide if he intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence causes the death of an individual. Criminal homicide is murder, capital murder, manslaughter, or criminally negligent homicide. In Section 19.02, murder, in this section, they give a couple of reasons behind what could be murder, considered murder. Adequate cause means cause that would commonly produce a degree of anger, rage, resentment, or terror in a person of ordinary temper sufficient to render the mind incapable of cool reflection. Sudden passion means passion directly caused by and arising out of provocation by the individual killed or another acting with the person killed, which passion arises at the time of the offense and is not solely the result of former provocation. Now, a person commits an offense if the person intentionally or knowingly causes the death of an individual, and 2, intends to cause seriously bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life that causes the death of an individual. In Section 1904, manslaughter, a person commits an offense if he recklessly causes the death of an individual. An offense under this section is a felony of the second degree, except that the offense is a felony of the first degree if it is shown in the trial of the offense that the defendant committed to offense under Section 28.09 and that conduct caused the death of an individual. In Section 19.05, criminally negligent homicide, the lowest of all of these charges, a person commits an offense if he causes the death of an individual by criminal negligence. An offense under this section is a state jail felony. The trial date for the state of Texas versus Karmelo Anthony is not scheduled until June 2026. Now, most of the online supporters for the Metcalfs believe that this will be a slam dunk for the prosecution. But with that burden of proof being squarely on the prosecution, it is in fact that proof that the supporters for the Anthonys have been challenging for many, many months. For instance, questions regarding the arrest report. Now, when we take a look at this arrest report, there seems to be implicit bias by the police who arrived on the scene. Now, as we take a look here, a race descriptive of black male is only being used for Karmelo Anthony, and no race descriptive used for the Metcalf twins, who are white males, nor for any of the so-called witnesses to the altercation. Conflicts in witness accounts is another example in which a witness said to be familiar with Anthony by another witness on the report denied knowing him when questioned by the police. Something else was the body cam footage by the lead officer was turned off during his investigation. Another thing was Karmelo Anthony, who was 17 at the time. He was never read his Miranda rights after he gave his initial statements to the arresting officer. And after Karmelo mentioned he was assaulted and defended himself to said officer, there was no investigation, nothing was looked into, and no other arrests were made. Also, Hunter Metcalf, he was allowed to leave the scene with his dad, Jeff Metcalf, and go home to change clothes without them being collected for evidence and before he gave a statement to police. And if many of you remember in those Fox News interviews, Hunter described having his brother die in his arms and him holding the wound to try to keep it from bleeding out. Also, we have media interviews. In 3 separate interviews to the media outlets, Hunter himself altered his accounts of the incident in each of them. And lastly, video of the incident. Numerous requests were made, granted, and given to those who put in for a request to see a video of the incident. It was made public by the Frisco ISD School District, and viewer accounts seemed to counter the narrative of events surrounding the altercation made by Hunter and his parents in their media interviews and when the Metcalf parents themselves appeared in live debate shows on TikTok and Facebook. What are folks who actually saw the video saying about it? Because at least 12 people that I know of have gone to see it. All of them on TikTok, and I definitely want to thank them all for coming on and describing what they witnessed when they viewed it. Now, there is a general narrative, and despite the media outlets reporting that the footage was too pixelated or too grainy to view, there seems to be a general description about the events that happened throughout this footage. First, Karmelo is seen in a gray sweatshirt, sitting in the last row of the bleachers under the school canopy, along with other students, by himself, looking at his phone prior to the altercation. They're all there because of a rain delay prior to the start of the track meet. 4 individuals wearing black hoodies are then seen walking briskly to the canopy and stopping right in front of a sitting Karmelo Anthony. They do not sit down, and Karmelo does not stand up. Karmelo is blocked from the view by the 4. Now, a minute or two later, movement, described as physical commotion, a burst of activity, a brawl, and even one viewer just flat out called it a fight. It can be seen happening up under that canopy. Karmelo is then seen crawling backwards, exiting from the back of the canopy. He quickly looks to his left, looks to his right, and it is said that he is seen to run diagonally down the bleachers and slipping on the last set of bleachers, falling, but quickly recovers. He runs out of frame and out of view. 3 of the 4 black hoodies gave chase, but gave up because Karmelo was just too fast. And back at the canopy, the individual believed to be Austin is seen slowly walking down steps of the bleachers, collapsing at the bottom. Everyone scatters, running in all directions from under the canopy. A small group gathers around Austin, seemingly to render aid. Damn. After 27 minutes of rendering aid to Austin, he is then taken to a trauma center, and it is here where he is pronounced deceased, almost an hour after the altercation. Now, Hunter's account of him holding his brother as he passed away in his arms can't be confirmed by this video. So what say you? What are your thoughts about this? After hearing all of this, what do you think? Is Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder in the first degree, or do you think he should be acquitted or receive a much lesser sentence for defending himself against 4 assailants? Drop your comments in the comments section. Would love to hear from you. That's all she wrote. This will be it for tonight's broadcast. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.